Hey there everyone and welcome back to the channel. So with a few things happening lately in the gaming space, I was left wondering to myself, what do I do now? So first off, I think when I speak about this it'd be pretty crazy to believe someone hasn't heard of the recently announced delay to New World we were hit with just the other day. I know, it kills my soul when I think about it and it's too soon. But with Amazon Game Studios announcing this new delay date of September 28th via Twitter, of which I'll have on the screen now, it had me wondering, like I previously mentioned, well, what do I do in the meantime? For that, however, I do want to say, as sad as it is that we'll essentially have to wait another month, and that I was incredibly pumped and ready to accept an August release date, the game definitely requires a bit more work. And I can totally understand the need for some extra time. The extra time that they've allotted for themselves will give them the chance to really clean up and polish the game to a hopefully wonderful, or at least noticeably better state overall come launch. And I get that, as sad as it is. But I will say that once again, I totally get the need for a delay. After all, we've seen countless times from the MMO space, or even the general gaming space, that first impressions on launch are vital to determining a living, thriving world, or a dead, lifeless space. This leads me to the original point of the video. What will I do now while I wait? Well, I had a few things in mind, outside of general life stuff which consists of study, exercise, and well, breathing I guess. My first thought was, is there anything I can play that even remotely feels like New World combat? And while not entirely the same for various reasons, I thought to myself that I may replay the entire Soulsborne series. Now, people that know me know I'm a huge Souls fan, and the combat type in New World being of that similar vein instantly attracted me. I've always been one to enjoy PvP in Dark Souls and PvP in general, which is largely what made me want to be heavily involved with New World's PvP scene. That and well, I've been itching to find an MMO that felt like home to me, and so far, New World seems to be the one that can check most of the boxes for me. Even more reason for the launch to be a success. Please guys, I'm begging you. I'll likely be messing around on some other games with friends too, like League of Legends, Guilty Gear Strive, Final Fantasy XIV, and anything else that might be interesting to me. But to me, the idea of playing a Souls title stood out to me the most, because if you're someone who, like many potential others, haven't played any of the Souls games due to whichever reasons or opinions they may be, this could be a good opportunity to do so while we wait. It provides a slight scratch to the itch for New World, at least for me personally, just because I get to run around, swing, dodge, roll, block, and probably die several thousand times in both PvP and the main game. So from my perspective at least, I definitely recommend considering it if you want to keep yourself warmed up for the eventual release of New World. Back onto the topic of what do I do now, I'd like to mention now that generally speaking, I really want to make content for New World, and it's kind of sucky having to wait the extra time to start diving in, regardless of how understandable the delay is. However, if there's anything you guys would like to see or have me discuss, I'd be more than happy to hear your suggestions in the comments section below. I value community interaction a lot, so please feel free. Another topic I'd like to touch on is some of my post-New World beta thoughts, although brief on the game, and some thoughts on PvP direction and the modes come launch. I want to start out by saying I felt the beta for New World, although not without its problems, was a big hit for me overall. From gathering all the juicy materials around the world while exploring, listening to the wonderful sound effects provided to us by the mining, using said materials to craft and level professions, all the way to the general feel of the world and combat itself. Personally, I feel like the world of Eternum has been crafted with such a beautiful art direction that I genuinely enjoy being in every single part of the world we can currently visit. Everything around you is so vibrant and stand out from my experiences of the beta, and I loved every second of exploring the world and entering new areas, and I'm personally really looking forward to seeing what other biomes, areas, or even settlements will look like. One thing I can say for certainty is that the world feels good to be in and even better to look at. So, moving into the combat. I can definitely understand and appreciate the complaints that a number of people have in the game regarding combat, like the fierce debate on stagger on normal attacks as an example, or even the stamina system, but for me the combat felt really enjoyable. It had the Souls-esque feel of action combat that had me actively looking for moments to go for big plays, and other moments of recognizing the need to dodge out of a bad situation. Regardless of the overarching systems in place, that dynamic feel of actively being involved in what I'm doing feels so good to have in an MMO finally. For me at the very least anyway. You guys might have other opinions, and of course that's totally fine. In my own experience, I found myself looking for every little bit of an advantage I could get on my opponent. I'd find myself theory crafting builds and playstyles and approaches to other people's weapon types. And you know, looking for that moment to bait a player with a grit spell for example, and to have that kind of active engagement with a game gives me a lot of joy, and the thoughts that there's definitely a bright hope for the game. Because to pull me in and have me thinking this deep about things, even in a beta state, says good things to me, and how much I want to be a part of it. But overall, I could see where there may be tweaks to the combat and general weapon balance. Here's looking at you, Lifestaff. That thing is healing way too much, to the point where it's kind of trivializing content. But if I was going to have my own wish list of sorts, I'd like to start by saying I would love to see more options for attack animation cancelling. I like the idea of faking out your opponents, and things like cancelling always adds that extra layer of finesse or skill into a fight. And I suppose even in the PvE sense, you could use forms of cancelling to react to a bad situation, so it's a win all round. I did see a post that I definitely liked in the beta forum, and many others, including the devs themselves, reacted to positively, and it mentioned the idea of being able to cancel, using Sheaf as an example I believe, out of a spell at a certain window, putting the cooldown on a 50% reduced timer as a result of cancelling the attack. I personally really like the idea of this, and it adds to my original thoughts. These kinds of things feel good, allow for more depth in general combat, and add to the PvP skill ceiling. I'm sure, however, we'll at least see some tweaks at launch when we receive the patch notes. In terms of weapon balance, I'm actually pretty content with most weapons. One weapon I will mention, however, that I think needs love is definitely the bow. Now, I'm personally not a bow user, but man, it's sad right now. All the future Legolases and Hawkeyes of the game are going to kind of be shafted at the moment, and the weapon definitely needs some love. Previously in the preview event, it was too strong with an essential shotgun one-shot combo you could use on a CC'd target, and I think that caused the devs to rework and tone down the weapon, but maybe a little bit too much. Now, however, I believe the bow should be in conversation for an uplift come launch. The other weapon I want to quickly touch on is the Fire Staff. I actually don't think the Fire Staff's in a bad place right now at all, although it clearly has strengths in bigger settings such as Wars and Outpost Rush compared to 1v1s or a smaller scale battle, but a personal request for me would be that I just want the weapon to feel a bit more impactful, you know? Now don't get me wrong, I'm primarily a Rapier and Fire Staff user. I love the setup, I'm going to use it on launch, unless it's really, really bad. But sometimes the feel of the weapon is just a little off. Maybe that's just me. Let me know if you feel any different. However, if we're to talk about the balance, I definitely want to see a slight tweak to Incinerate. The spell, while still kind of decent, just feels rough to use in a lot of cases. It feels like you're almost guaranteed to be slammed when trying to cast it, and as a result, the payoff sometimes just doesn't feel worth it. I'd like to see a middle point between the preview patch and the beta version in terms of relative strength. As for PvP in New World, I hope that there will be more incentives to engage in open world PvP. I personally play with PvP on almost always, but I know it could do with a little more enticement. I'd also like to see PvP faction quests have a bit more cohesion and reward to them in a way that makes you actively engage and clash with enemy factions while out there questing in the first place. One last thing I'd like to talk about is Outpost Rush. So for those that didn't get to try the mode or didn't even know it existed, Outpost Rush is a 20v20 battleground style PvP game mode that has a PvE element attached to it. To quickly go through the rules, they are as follow. Capture outposts. Capture outposts and slay the enemy to score points. First team to 1000 wins. So pretty standard, you know, kill guys, capture, GG. And then we have gathering resources. Gather infused wood, ore and hides to upgrade your outpost by building gates and siege weapons. Build a command post to gain powerful offensive and defensive boosts for your team. So essentially, you'll likely have dedicated people massively gathering resources for the team to bolster your offense and defense, which adds more layers than just bonk X on the head until win screen. Now this is an interesting one. Summon monstrous allies. Use summoning stones to summon powerful allies at summoning circles. Summon a bear by buying a stone from the armory, or gain an ultra powerful brute ally by donating Azoth at the corrupted portal. So with this, there'll be summoning circle zones on the map, and you'll be able to buy summoning stones for specific mobs, take them to the circle, and boom, you get yourself some friends to fight for you. I do believe though that the stones can be dropped on death, but I don't know if the enemies can even take them. If they can, well, way to lose for your team, man. But I like this idea of sending extra disruptions for the enemy teams to deal with. And then finally you have Slay the Boss. Essentially I see this as Baron Nashor from League of Legends, if you know what that is, where you'll want to be in a position to fight for this objective in order to obtain a huge swing in your team's favour. And again, this kind of added objective really adds to the layers and gives teams a lot to think about, such as timings, like maybe you want to save up the stones and send a big horde of mobs the enemy's way while you try and sneak the Baroness itself as an example. Overall, I actually think this mode is a ton of fun and is definitely a great addition to the game. My only personal issue with it is that, as you probably saw on the picture on the screen at the time, you have to be level 60 to even begin to participate in the game mode. Now, don't get me wrong, I can see the angle the devs were going for, right? A cool endgame mode that's a lot of fun, gives you all the PvP replayability you wanted. I get that, I do. But honestly, it's really a shame. So many players are going to have to wait a long time. They're going to have a long time ahead of them before they even get to see the game mode. And some players may never even reach the level cap to even know if it could have been something that would keep them playing. Because of that, I'd personally not be against the devs considering a lower barrier for entry, maybe with level brackets starting at, like, let's say level 30 as an example, just to throw it out there. A much more attainable level, giving people the option to play a PvP mode from there onwards, in a bracket that's close to them. It seems like an ideal situation, as I know there's some people out there that would love to just hard blast a PvP mode instead of some other activities they may not like as much, but whether or not we'll see this change is something that remains to be seen. A quick mention for War as well. I didn't get to actually participate in War during the beta, but from what I've heard and seen, this is something that definitely requires some extra work, and the extra time from the delay will definitely go into. There's also balance that's needed for it as well. But we need to get an actual feel of like PvP War rather than an absolute cluster of confused screaming, pain, and explosions while character models are effectively frozen. But we'll see. That just about does it though for the video. Hopefully this gives some insight into my personal thoughts on the beta and some aspects of PvP and combat. Please feel free to let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comments section, whether you agree or disagree. I'm more than happy to hear each other's opinions on the topics and would love to hear suggestions from you guys. Also, I'm still very much a noob at this whole thing, so hitting the thumbs up or thumbs down if you're that way inclined helps me a ton to know what I'm getting right and wrong, so if you could do that, that would help me a lot. If you'd like to see more from me, including New World content and a large focus on PvP, consider hitting the subscribe button. It would help me a bunch and would be highly appreciated. Thanks for watching everyone. We'll hopefully meet again at the new launch date of 28th September for some New World goodness.